Today's guest is someone I've had the privilege of watching grow over the last year. He's the owner of Air Woodlands, a husband, father, business owner, and leader who made the decision to lean into growth instead of staying comfortable. Over the last 12 months, I've watched Jeremy Laurence transform not only his business, but in leadership, his relationships, accountability, and the way he shows up for others. Jeremy, welcome back to the show, brother.
Thank you, Sean.
So, Jeremy, take us back 12 months. Who was Jeremy before Level Up and Live, and what was life and business like at that time?
So I want to start. It actually wasn't a full 12 months, Sean. It's only been a little bit over 9 or 10 months. In the
Time flies when you're
transformation,
having fun.
yeah, the transformation has been amazing. So before I got in here, I was the business owner that worked in his business that was wore out, tired, couldn't handle anything anymore. And what I was miserable. Let's just be honest. I ran into Matt and I saw him. Y'all having the meetings on Fridays on social media, and I just said, "What is this?" And God was moving or whatever, however you want to look at it, and He put me in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Shortly after that, my service manager left me.
Mm.
I came to Live Up and Live, and I thought it was the end of the world. He's been with me for 8 years, and today I'm a happy uh, man that owns a business that doesn't work in the business as hard as I used to. I run the business and I've got people in leadership that help me keep this business afloat.
A lot of times for us as business owners and leaders to say enough is enough and to reach out for help, which we think that's a sign of weakness, it's actually a sign of strength. I'm curious with you, Jeremy, what was that challenge or frustration or even pain point for you that caused you to finally walk through the doors and reach out for help?
So me and Angela bought the business in 2018. It was a very small business, mom and pop, worked for the guy for 10 years. And then when it came about, when we bought it, we started growing. We've grown substantially over the last, 8 years. But I've always been a worker. I'll go out in the field. I could fix air conditions. That's easy. I could do them things, that's easy. The last year, I was so worn out that I had to step away, like to the point I was ready to sell the business. I was ready to give up. Uh, like I could walk into the door of my home and my wife could see what kind of mood I was on. And that's when she knew to stay away from me or to welcome me home. That's a feeling that I don't ever want again. And that's when I knew that I had to change something or I was only going to get worse.
I love that. So you showed up, you said, you know what, enough's enough, and I need to reach out for help. What was your first impression when you walked into the room? When you walked through those doors, you pulled it open and you started shaking hands when me and you first met. Was there anything that actually surprised you when you first walked in?
So nervous, fearful. I didn't know what kind of room I was walking into. I didn't know what kind of business leaders it was. I didn't know anything. And Sean, I've always measured my self-worth on value, income, things like that. Like, oh, look what I'm doing. I'll prove to you. I'll just work harder. I'll make more. Uh, so I didn't know what I was walking into when I walked in that room. But the one thing I did notice, I saw some normal humans and they were laughing. They were having a good time. And I remember the first time walking in, I stood in the corner. We were at the building that caught on fire. Everybody was laughing, having a good time. I think y'all brought coffee from somewhere and everybody had coffee, but Jeremy didn't because I didn't know about the coffee connect, and but I stayed involved. And I kept on and I shook one more hand and I talked to one more person, and y'all welcomed me. And that's what I needed at that moment.
Yeah. During those first 60 to 90 days, because usually that's typically when we start formulating habits is that first 30, 60, 90 days. For you and your personal experience, what happened during those that made you realize this was different than a networking group or something that you've been into in the past?
So the major thing I saw was individuals sharing their honesty, sharing where they were at, sharing where they wanted to go. Uh, and I'll be honest, when I walked into the room, I believed what everybody was saying, everybody was doing. I've learned over the time that's not always true.
Yeah.
But what I did learn is I could always find some people and respect them. And the ones I do respect, I know I could go to, I know I could talk to, I know I could be I know I'll be a friend to them and they'll be a friend to me back. And like I said, that's exactly what I needed that first 60 or 90 days.
Hmm. What has changed the most for you over this last 8 to 12 months? I mean, is it business, leadership, relationships, mindset? Can you put a pulse on it on what has changed the most for you in the last year?
There's not one thing. The the most visible thing is, I changed my health journey in January. I was at 258, December 23rd. I went to the doctor. We had me and my son got the flu. He's 4, and we both went to the doctor. And I was 258. Today I weighed in at 222. I've
Nice.
literally I watch my calories. I watch what I eat. I do. You talked to me about doing some small exercise. I got me a little 12-pound dumbbell 3 nights a week beside my bed. I do that. Um, so that's the most noticeable thing. The most thing that I feel is I'm happy again. I smile a lot more. I've always been a loving, caring person, I feel, but when I get in that mode of stress, overwhelmed, wore
Yeah.
out, that all's out the window, and jerk Jeremy comes out, and it's like, today I don't wanna be jerk Jeremy.
Mm. If someone met Jeremy from a year ago, going back 8 to 12 months, and the Jeremy sitting here today on this podcast, what would they notice that's the biggest difference?
Like I said, I mean, I think they'd really see how I'm pouring to my employees now. Like my business, we have structure. I've got business coaching for several of my employees. I'm involved. I'm trying to pour into them. I brought my 19-year-old son with me for 2 years. He's going into his own truck this year. We're starting to, let him go be a little free bird and fly. He ran some calls yesterday. He's ran some calls, the last couple of weeks. My daughter, we set her up a career path. She's 21, so we're bringing her into the business. Uh, and what that says is like my kids want to work for their dad. My kids want to work for their mom, their stepmom, because we're good owners, we're good bosses. And I think that's what a lot of people say. They would see the transformation of where we came from a year ago in business to where we are today. And we've always been we try to say we're a good business, but when you're in that stress mode, Sean, that's out the window. You could say you're a good boss, but when you come in and you treat your employees like crap, are you a good boss? No, you're really
Yeah.
not.
Mhm. Was there a conversation or a lesson or a breakthrough that has impacted you the most in this journey of going through this transformation of leadership? Because we like to say everything rises and falls on leadership. And that's what I'm hearing you say is that you've looked inward and you've went through that development and you're continuing to do that now. You're building that bridge and that gap for others in your business and the people around you. So was there a particular conversation or lesson or breakthrough that impacted you the most that you can reflect on?
I mean, I don't think business wise it did. Sean, part of my story, over 10 years ago, I struggled with the disease of addiction. I was very hard into that. And I went to a 12-step program there. So I had that little push then to like find people that so support you and join a community is what I look at it. So
Yeah.
when I came here, like I said, Sean, I was ready to sell my business. I mean, I literally told my business coach, let's just sell it. Let's bring a manager in. Let's run it. I want to go sit at home on my little hobby farm and do nothing. But I look back at what did I do 10 years ago? And when I walked into that community, there was God put people in my life I needed then to bring me up to where I am today. When I walked in Level Up and Lid, God put a certain few hand people in my life that I needed then to help me get to where I am today. The biggest thing is we were talking in a circle one day about our purpose, and I did not know what my purpose was. Um, and me and MD started talking, and then I went and had a one-on-one with MD. It was only supposed to last 45 minutes or whatever. And 2.5 hours later, the good old MD. Uh, but I mean, there was times I was crying in there. There was times I was laughing. There was times, and what I really found, Sean, is like I really feel my purpose is to serve other people. If that's from my family, my employees, my customers, whatever it is, I feel good when I do that. And I feel good when I give back. And so if I stay in line with that, um, it makes me feel good, and that's where I'm at in life today. I wanna feel good about the things I'm doing.
That business owner or leader, entrepreneur that's listening to this right now that says, I am tired, Jeremy. I am fatigued. I'm exhausted. I can't sleep. I've neglected my health, my relationships, my marriage, and I'm ready to sell my business. What would you tell that business owner?
First, I tell them to suit up and show up. Sometimes you got to put your big boy pants on. I really feel that entrepreneurs we're a different breed. We could work till midnight, sleep till 5, get up, do the things over and in. We have that grind or that hustle in us.
Yeah.
So you could get through this. Just keep doing what you're doing. Find you a community. Start talking to some people. And man, be honest. I mean, that's where it was. Like when I found out that I could be honest with people and like tell them how I feel. Like so many guys don't want to say how they feel or how this or or cry. Once I found out I could do that, Sean, and I could be truthful with people, like man, all bets are off.
Yeah.
I allow I allow the people God want in my life at that moment to be able to help me if I'm truthful.
Mm, love that. One thing I've noticed about you, Jeremy, is that you are now helping bring other leaders into the room, into the community. You're enrolling individuals. You're building that bridge and that ladder for them. Why is that important to you?
So the coolest thing I like, Sean, I'm there's some older people than me, but I'm like that middle age, and there's a lot younger people than me. I wish I would have had somebody at 29, 32, whatever, that younger age to sit back and say, "Hey, start putting these processes in place now. Start doing these things now." Because at 42, when I started this journey, uh, why wait till the miserable point? Why, so that's why I really try to when I see a young entrepreneur, see a young person in leadership, all that stuff, I try to pour into them because I don't want them to get to that burnout point. Um,
Mm,
because we're not the best version of ourselves when we're there. You know that, I know that. When we're wore out, when we're tired, we're not
yeah.
the best version. So if we could stop that before they get in their 30s, man, the sky's the limit for these guys. And going back to my purpose is to be of service to people. So if I could help them, you know, I feel good.
Yeah, I agree with that, man. Do you think from your experience that the business owner or leader listening to this, they have the blueprint of life and what that looks like? I need to show up. I need to join a community. I need to ask good questions. I need to get curious. I need to look within versus the externals. Do you think that you have to almost go through the pain cave before you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, kind of like you did and I did, before they end up neglecting all these other areas of life?
I think some of us are a little more hard headed than others. And I think I'll speak, we're looking in a
Yeah.
mirror right now. That was it for both of us. Um, So, no, I don't think everybody has to go down the road we had to go down. Why was my path the way it was, Sean? That was my path. Why did I have to beat my head against the wall so many times? That was my path. Uh, but if we could start playing these little nuggets here and there in people, and they remember, why wait to the pain is 100 when they could say, "Oh, Jeremy said this, MD said this, Sean said this, whoever said this," and they're at 50, and they could start reeling their, emotions or their back right then. It's so much easier. I share this with people all the time that I work with, all that stuff. If we could just give away some of our stress, some of our resentment, some of these things, like 30% of them, how much easier would the day be to go through the day 30% happier, 30% better? If I'm at 80% all the time, if I bring that down to 50, man,
Mm,
I'm in a better place.
yeah. What is one thing that a leader could do today, one action step that they could do today to start looking inward, start reflecting? If you're talking to the version of yourself 9 months ago that first walked through that door, what would you tell that Jeremy Lawrence to start working on right now?
Mm. I think the biggest thing, Sean, I would start bringing God into it. That's the one. But before this episode in my office, I got on my knees and I asked God to please bless this episode. Please help one person and please continue blessing my business. That's what I would try to do. And I am not the most pastor, person out there. I'm a flawed human being that makes mistakes and I sin still and I do all them things. But I know that I could go to God and say, "Hey, I need your help. Can you help me in this area?" And He shows up. That's
Mm.
for sure. So that's probably the first action step I'd say is start bringing God into the conversation.
Why is it important to bring God into your life and have a relationship with him, and what happens if you don't?
Well, the ultimate thing is, I was taught you're going to hell if you don't have a relationship with God. So if you haven't accepted Jesus, I would highly recommend it. Um, but the other thing is that's if I could get that communication right and that relationship right, the other ones are a lot easier.
Mhm.
If I could talk to him and be truthful, I could talk to my wife and be truthful. I could talk to Sean and be truthful. I could be open and honest about things. Um, if I'm going to him more, is how I look at it.
Mhm. Love that. Great advice. What is Jeremy Lawrence focusing on right now? And what does it look like for you in the next 6 to 12 months? What are you double downing on, triple downing on? Because where focus goes, energy flows. So, what are you focusing on in your development in the next 6 to 12 months?
So I'm still watching my weight journey. I really want to be between 215 and 218. That's where, my doctor would like me to be at. So that's what I'm really trying to do. So I'm still, eating my salads for lunch or whatever, is on the healthy menu for the day, or my chicken fajitas that I grill. Um, but so I made a mistake a while back, and this is still, the entrepreneur. I started reading a book, and it was a little bit, I'll share this on here. I've read probably 8 books in my life. Uh, I've read four since November 16th of 2025. That was my birthday. Turned 43 years old. I went online, did the research. I bought myself 3 books for my birthday, and I started reading books. MD's gives me some books. My brothers give me some books. But so I started reading my fifth book was a John Maxwell book, and it was a big, thicker book, harder, and I've got some good things on it. But Sean, I just could never finish it. And I
Yeah.
was wore out. And I kept saying, don't quit, don't quit, don't quit. I talked to my brother, I talked to other people that love reading, and they're like, hey, just put it down, start another book. And I'm like, no, I don't want to quit. I don't want to quit. But what I saw myself doing, Sean, is I was quitting because I wasn't picking up the book,
Mm,
you know? So what I made a decision, I talked with God the
yeah.
other day at the Level Up and Live that Stand Firm and Be a Man book was
Yeah.
out there. I was like, hey, so I looked at it, I'm like, hey, this looks pretty easy. So I started reading that. I've read every day since Friday,
Mm,
and I'm feeling it good. So my big thing is continue reading. I'm not the best reader, I'm not the best speller, but when I that little 10 or 15 or 20 minutes or whatever I take to read 5 pages or whatever it is in the morning or at night, I feel accomplished. I feel
mm,
like I'm giving back to myself something that I've never done before.
mm.
So that's what I'm really going for.
You had mentioned health earlier, and I know you've been on that journey, which a lot of listeners are struggle with that as well in weight loss. We don't have to dive this probably for another episode, but you've mentioned it a couple of times now. Why is that important for you to be healthy in your well-being and physically, mentally, emotionally in alignment with those things? Why is that important to you?
From so, Sean, when I started coming up on the about talking about a lot of people were talking about getting up early, doing this, working out, all that stuff. And I've never been the early riser. Like, I mean, I used to 8:15, maybe be at the office at 9, made my own schedule, 9 to 11 was my first call. So, if I wanted to sleep in, I would hit the snooze. And I started saying, like, I got to start making these changes.
Mhm.
So one of the things I asked you about, you're like, hey, start watching your calories, start doing this. So I started doing that. I started doing some research. I talked to MD. We went to Chat GPT. It gave me if you're trying to lose weight, this is the calorie deficit you need to stay in. So I started doing the things, and I started feeling my body started feeling so much better. My body didn't ache as much. I was sleeping better. I usually wake up every morning before my alarm or right at my alarm at 5 a.m. now. I get up and I have my time in the morning where it's just Jeremy and he makes his breakfast and he gives back to himself. So the reason that's important to me because I it's something I'm doing for myself. My kids see it, my wife sees it, my friends see it, but ultimately it's for myself, Sean, to make me a better person.
Why is it important for you to do and stick to that schedule, work on your health, and really do it for yourself? Why is that so important to you?
Because ultimately, as I have children and a wife that I want to be around for. I have an amazing wife. Angela's always supported me. She's always been there for me.
Mm,
And I have a 3-year-old, son that or 4-year-old now. He looks up to me. A 9-year-old that looks up to me, and then my 2 older kids are 20 and 21. The younger kids got the best version of me. We've already came. We understand that. But the older kids get to also experience that best version, and I want them to. I want that best version to be around as long as I can for them.
yeah. Are they working out with you yet?
So my 4-year-old does. It's kind of funny. I bought him a 2.5 pound little circle weight, and he gets in there, and he just has. So it's fun. When I do sit ups, you should see that. That's pretty funny. Watch him do sit ups. So I mean, but it's fun, and he sees dad doing it. And it's consistency. It's about 3 nights a week I do it. So it's the consistency that he sees there.
Yeah, I love that, man. If you could go back and talk to Jeremy, who walked into Level Up and Live for the very first time, walked through that door, the guy in the corner that was staying in his lane, not saying anything, unaware of his circumstances, shy, timid, knowing one person in the room, what would you tell him?
Sean, I really tell him, like, Jeremy is a good guy. Um,
Mm,
Jeremy's a man of God. Jeremy's a good father. Jeremy's he's humble and kind. He's a lot of the characteristics that I've always tried to be, but when I could always look at the negative. Uh, and when I start looking at the negative myself, all bets are off. If I don't like myself, if I don't like this about me, then it's not good. So if I could just pour into Jeremy at that moment, like, you're a
mm,
good person, you're a good human. Um, that's what I really do. So to have confidence that he knew he could. If I have confidence, I could accomplish anything in the world. It's when I start getting in fear and all that stuff that I start stepping back.
yeah. Well, Jeremy, brother, I just love the man that who you're becoming, and just watching you being on this journey with you is not only an inspiration, but it's an aspiration because of how you show up and you pour into other people's, not just when you feel like it, not on a daily, a weekly, monthly. You're doing this on a daily basis, and you serving and impacting. That's in alignment with who God has called you to be, and it's very rare, brother. So I appreciate you for how God is working through your life, because all glory goes to Him. We need more men like you, man. So keep up the great work. And if you're listening to this, I hope this episode reminded you that growth does not happen because you just need more information. Listen to this podcast, YouTube, seminars, conferences. We don't need more information. It happens when you get around the right people like Jeremy Laurence, having the right conversations and committing to becoming the person you're capable of. Jeremy, thank you for your leadership, friendship, and the example you're setting for others. Appreciate you guys being here. Keep leveling up.
Thank you, Sean.